In this video, we're going to be creating trigger interactions in Unity. What I mean by that is like zones you can just walk into and something will happen when you do. Because plenty of games have that and plenty of games need that, especially for adventure games. This video does not assume you know anything, but it does assume you already have a player in your game because this video has nothing to do with making a player. So in this video, I will have a player already in my game with a rigid body 2D and a box glider 2D and a player input component that lets it walk around like this. This video will focus solely on the trigger that we're colliding with. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up an area for our player to walk into. So we're going to add a empty. An empty is a game object that has nothing on it except for transform by default. It also wouldn't have a transform if every object wasn't forced to have one. You see there is no remove button by transform because it's the only component that every object has to have. Let's rename this to trigger zone. All we're going to do in this component is click add component and add a box slider 2D. This box slider is special because we want it to know that the player touched it, but we don't want the player to physically interact or collide with it. We want the player to pass right through. So under is trigger, we're going to click the box here to set it to true. Now this collider is a trigger, which means we can still change the size, we can still do all that fancy stuff, but the player won't touch the thing at all. Let's move this collider, it's bothering me a little bit, like that. Let's make it exactly 10 units tall. Make it exactly 4 units wide, like that. Now, this is set up. Let's play the game. Obviously, it's not going to do anything yet, but let's just walk into it and see what happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Good. If I click the is trigger while I'm inside of it, I get pushed out of it, you notice, and then I can't walk back into it. If I walk around, we'll see I push into it now. If I check is trigger again, I can walk into it again, uncheck, get pushed out. Whether or not an object is set to is trigger, you can always respond to collisions with code that you write, but having it be checked means that you basically can't see it at all and something can still happen, which is exactly what we want with these trigger zones. We're going to make a script for interacting with this trigger zone by right-clicking in our assets scripts folder, which if you do not have a scripts folder, you should make one and put all your scripts in there. We're going to right-click, create, mono behavior script. I'm going to call this one trigger zone. It's important that this is all one word and you capitalize the first letter of each word. Now, the other way to make scripts is, after I finish loading, I can show you. When you have the component menu on your object, you can click the add component button here and type in the name of a non-existent script and it'll make it for you. But that won't put it in a scripts folder. That'll just put it at the root of your project in the assets folder, which it should never be there because you'll just move it to your scripts folder anyways, and moving things in GitHub could be a real pain in the butt. So it's better just to make it in here in the first place, and you can drag it onto your object like this. Cool. Let's go into the script and let's add our code. This is probably the most simple video we'll have because the code is only one function. After that, we're just done. Let's get rid of void start and void update. We don't need either one. We're going to make a, well, which one are we going to use? Because we have 6 on collision functions and 6 on trigger functions, which is 12 collision related functions, and only one of them is going to work the way we want it to. Let's start with the difference between on trigger and on collision. On collision is used for things that do not have this trigger box checked. And then the on trigger functions are used for things that do have that box checked. So we're going to use one of the 6 that says on trigger. Next, we have the ones that end with the word 2D and the ones that don't. If you're doing a 2D game, you always want to do the ones that end in 2D. Finally, we either have enter, exit, or stay. This can be up to you, but I think most of us are going to want to be on enter. So we settled on trigger, enter 2D, because it's a trigger collider and it's in a 2D game and we want to run the code once we enter the collider. Let's add something called a debug log to test out if this works. Inside the curly brackets, we're going to write debug.log and then parentheses quotation marks a message. Our message will be it works. And then any line of code that does something, you always end it in a semicolon. So the log console is here. It's in this other window here. And when it prints the message, it's going to put it in here, along with any other errors, warnings, or info dumps that Unity is going to give us. Let's walk into the trigger. And we see it says it works. It printed the message one time because we only walked into it once. But if we leave and re-enter, we can try and see how fast we can get it to fill up. Yeah, we can see it keeps going up. Next thing we're going to do is actually put some code in here. We're going to make this code generic because we want to be able to do anything. So what we're going to do is at the top of this code, we're going to create a public Unity event. And we're going to click on the first one. And we're going to call this on enter. A Unity event allows us to basically say, we don't know what's going to happen in the script because we want it to be able to, the user to be able to decide, whoever's programming it, to decide what they want it to do. And they can decide inside of Unity. So in these curly brackets here, we're going to say on enter.invoke, and you'll see what I mean now. If I switch back to Unity, we see that our trigger zone component on our object has a new property called on enter. One second, I gotta reset my window layout. This on enter is a Unity event. I can plug in variables or actions in here, or events or functions or anything like that. And since I put the invoke code inside the on trigger enter 2D, it'll happen once we enter the trigger. Let's try it out. This is something very simple. Let's drag the player in here and go to game object and go to name. We'll change the name of the player to Jeff when we enter the collision by typing in the word Jeff inside of the string bar. Let's play the game, see what happens. Pay attention to the player's name here. You'll see that the name got changed to Jeff. It worked perfectly. We can add anything we want inside of this event here, and it will happen once we touch the box. That's honestly mostly it for the video. This is a very, very simple concept. I will show you give you some ideas, just some other videos. In another video, we made a scene load script called start menu. If I throw this on here and I drag this in and I go to start menu methods and go to that start game button script we made, the function, and I type in the scene, like sample scene, for example. If you didn't watch the video, what this function we made does is it loads whatever scene you type in here, which in this case is sample scene. That's what I just typed in. So when I enter the collision box or the trigger box, it should load sample scene now. Okay, let's try another one. Instead, let's try, I would say the dialogue thing, but I really do not feel like setting up the dialogue box right now. If a character had stats, we could edit their stats. If the player had, I can go and, let's see. I could affect like their position and stuff like that. There's lots of stuff you can do. As long as a function is marked public in your code, then you can, it's applicable to here. Like if this was a dialog box, I could drag the dialog box in and I could say start dialog like that, which this isn't a dialog box, so it's not going to work. But as you can see, since this function was marked as public, and it was called, in this case, the start dialog right here, it plugged in just fine right here. So hopefully you think about making all your code stuff public so that you can throw them into those Unity events. That's it for the video. Hopefully this helped and you can think about how to extend this to your game so you can put different trigger zones and stuff like that in your game for exposition and timeline, cutscenes, stuff like that. Yeah, thanks for watching.